got to stay on the field more. This offense does. Chris Kleiman's talked about it. They averaged 75.4 plays per game against FBS opponents last year. They ranked 13th highest in all of college football and 3rd highest in the Big 12 behind TCU and Oklahoma. They're averaging 55 plays per game right now through 2 games. They had 7 3-and-outs in the first 2 games with the first-team offense. Offense got to stay on the field more.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
Hello and welcome into another edition of 3 Ma. I am John Kurtz, joined by my pals Derek Young and Cole Manbeck. It is game preview edition. We are previewing K-State and Arizona, which comes a day early, all right? This is your friendly reminder that K-State Arizona is on Friday, which means you have even less time to get your tailgate ready to go. And, of course, any tailgate needs some Ben Holiday bottled in bond bourbon from our friends at Holiday Distillery. And I was alerted to, Cole sent us a nice screenshot of somebody in the YouTube comments who was just glowing about how much they loved Ben Holiday bottled in bond bourbon and thanked us for the heads up. So remember when I tell you, don't say we never did anything for you. We're giving you the recommendation, and we have literally people everywhere telling us how great it is. So go check out Ben Holiday Bottled in Bond Bourbon. Not only is it great, but you're also supporting great K-State folks at Holiday Distillery. They've got 360 vodka as well, which seems like it should be a tailgate staple as well. Okay, short week, everybody. Do we feel like we're locked in? Did everybody get some work in, practice in on Sunday instead of just sitting around and not doing anything like you typically would and resting? Like, are we locked in?
I'm way behind on content for K-State Online, especially after driving 30 hours and then it being a short week. So I'm probably not locked in. I'll be quite honest, but I have been told that Kent State has had a better week of practice.
I'm always locked in, John. I began kickoff and prep work for Arizona as soon as the Tulane game ended. So Saturday night, film study, stat study, research, prep. Sunday morning, get up early with the kids, ignore them, put on something on TV, don't pay attention to them while I do my statistical research and prep for Tulane or for Arizona and research the Tulane game and some of the historical context of the climate era and that. You know, I'm always ready. Yeah, I've got so much going on.
I figured Brody's basically an intern at this point. No,
he is. Man, the kid is my intern, except he says some things without backing it up factually. So we gotta sometimes pull the evidence to make sure we're fact based here on 3.
Yeah, and I feel like usually it's coming after me.
He has been coming after you, man. Yeah, it's pretty funny. He listens to the shows. He listens to 3 Mile, which sometimes can be frightening. But like when we're driving to go to Manhattan or to the games, or when we're driving to the lake, to Council Grove, he gets the hotspot going on the iPad, and he's listening to the whole 3 Mile show in the back of the van.
Well, it's a good thing he listens to John on 3 Mile, because when John goes on the KSO show, he just starts flying F-bombs.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I'm not sure what you're talking about there. Anyway, K-State, Arizona. Look, I was just listening literally right before I popped in here this morning to Curry Sexton, which you guys should obviously go listen to that podcast in the feed. But I was listening to him talk about the K-State defense. To me, the biggest headline of this week, as far as K-State is concerned, is like, is that a blip on the radar screen for the defense, or is this a sign of major problems to come? And I will be very interested to hear what, is it, we're recording this Wednesday morning. Are the coordinators going today?
Yes.
Eli? I'll be really interested to hear what Joe Klanderman has to say about it, because Chris Kleiman didn't hide from it in the press conference on Monday. I mean, he said, look, or maybe it was even the post-game press conference I was listening to. He has not been shy, point being, about saying, like, look, guys, I see it too. Like, we can't just say, hey, we won the game, everything's great. Like, we've got to be better. And as weird as it is, I guess there's a part of me that feels like at least it wasn't, hey, we're playing man coverage the entire day and guys are just getting beat. That's where it's almost better to have guys just running totally wide open where there's nobody within 10 yards of them, because you're like, well, that seems more fixable than just not having guys that can cover in man coverage and getting beaten by 2 steps. It's like, no, you had a coverage bust and there was nobody within 20 yards of this guy. So I don't know. Where are you at on that right now, DY, especially after a rewatch of the game?
I thought it was kind of an issue, even though they didn't get burnt from it, against UT Martin as well. So I'm probably somewhere in the middle of very worried and not worried, if that makes sense. I think it's an issue that needs resolved and wasn't just a one-off. But 2 games is also still a sample size. What I do take a little bit of solace in is that it's probably a good thing that they got exposed by that before the Arizona game while simultaneously still figuring out a way to win. It was like, to me, it's a little bit the best of both worlds, because sometimes for your guys to buy in and improve and fix something, they got to like be exposed, if that makes sense. If they're winning and getting away with it, it's not as easy to get the players to kind of invest in improving a certain aspect. Well, they got exposed, so now I just feel like you're probably going to get a little bit more engaged in buy-in on the fix right before playing a very pivotal opponent. So not good that it happened, but could be a good thing moving forward, especially since you still figured out a way to win. That is how I would describe it. I do think it's fixed. In 5 days, we'll find out.
I think you could look at this 2 ways. You could look at it that the disconcerting thing is you've got a secondary that we build as arguably the best in the Big 12 with the most quality depth, and they shouldn't be having communication errors in the second game of the season, even if it is game 2, because there's so much returning production there on the defensive side of the football. So it's disconcerting that you give up 342 yards passing and the 4th highest yards per pass attempt allowed in the Chris Kleiman era, sans 2020 in the COVID season, in a game against a redshirt freshman quarterback at Tulane. However, you could also look at it the other way and say, I know they're going to get it fixed. We've seen these guys do it before. Last year, K-State was 10th in the country in completion percentage allowed at 55%, best in the Big 12. They were best in yards per pass attempt allowed in the Big 12, and they were 14th in the country and number 2 in the Big 12 behind only Oklahoma in pass efficiency defense. So we've seen this group do it, and it's mostly returning faces in the secondary. Will Lee's gone. Kobe Savage is gone. I think we all agree Kobe Savage really wasn't as impactful or himself last year. So, and Will Lee down the stretch wasn't very good. So it was Keenan Garber largely. It was Jacob Parrish, Marquise Siegel, BJ Payne, and these guys that are out there on the field. So I think you can trust that Chris Kleiman and Joe Klanderman will get it corrected, though the concern is the explosives again, because last year K-State was 126th in the country defensively in explosive plays allowed, and now 9 plays of 20 yards or more against Tulane. Consider this, guys. Iowa State had 8 last year of 20 yards or more. Tulane had 9. And in the last 5 games last year, K-State gave up 23 plays of 20 yards or more, which is too many. But in one game against Tulane, they allowed 9. And so it was a bit troublesome that there were so many guys running wide open. But to DY's point and to what I was saying earlier, I think you got the talent on the back end of the defense. It's just a matter of cleaning things up and communicating better.
And what I would say is, too, if I trust this staff to do anything, it's to get the secondary right. So this is probably, in some ways, like if you're going to have a problem, this isn't the worst problem to have. And Cole, you talked all about offseason about this team needing to stop the run. We know they stopped the run against UT Martin. Now, there was that 139-yard run where a few of the linemen got washed away and Mekhi Hughes took off. You take away that run, they, again, 36 carries and 110 yards outside of that run. You'll take that every day of the week. So just eliminating these passing explosives that we're talking about right now, and this defense is well on track to be the unit that we thought they would be.
What would those numbers look like, DY? So they actually also Hughes had a 32-yard run as well. So actually probably 2 of their rushes accounted for, 60-70%. Now, you want to minimize the explosive plays, but I had to imagine that K-State's defensive success rate against the run was pretty darn high. Given two explosives.
Definitely. Again, the explosives are hurting them, as you pointed out. But the run defense has been really good for the most part.
Well, I thought it was interesting as it relates to the pass defense, probably more so than the run defense. Chris Kleiman mentioned, like, hey, whether it's like maybe it is we've just got to simplify things. Like, we've got to figure out, is it the guys can't handle this much information, and that's what was causing the problem. Early on in the year, I mean, I guess that makes sense, but that does seem that the one thing I was like, kind of with that, I'm like, okay, well, if that works, that's great. I was like, it does seem like they have a lot of veterans back there, right? Like, it probably shouldn't be.
Yeah, that's weird that would be the problem, especially when you have 4 returners starting. Some of it's also you just got to trust your eyes. I mean, the worst ball that Darian Mensah threw on the day that should have been picked went for a touchdown.
Yeah, and you would think with the helmet technology too, like you should be even more aligned, right? I mean, you've got communication system through the headset.
Well, they said the communication issues were post-snap, not pre-snap, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, everybody has a plan until the bullets.
Right, and Jordan Riley should have intercepted that ball that went for a touchdown.
Oh, yeah, definitely. That's why I said, maybe that was a post-game show when I was talking about it, but I said to Cole, I was like, DY kind of took me back to like the early Julius Brents days, like when he would just be in position but not be able to have the ball skills to go actually get up and get anything.
That was the worst throw of Mensah's day.
Yeah, you knew he felt like he made a mistake. Did you see his reaction? He had his hands over his head after
you didn't see the safety over the top at all. Yeah,
no, it was a good defensive executed call. I mean, they had the safety help over the top. It should at the very least, as I said post game, that ball can't be caught. It's got to be broken up. But for it to be, I mean, I was stunned that ball was caught, and I didn't know what Jordan Riley was doing, if he was worried about interfering. But he's got to go up and get that ball.
Yeah, I mean, hell, if he catches the ball and lands on his feet, he's probably got a pick 6 too.
Well, thank goodness Louis Riddick heaped a lot of praise on Darian Mensah for that throw after it happened. That was very good. High moment. Cole, I was also going to point out, if K-State's secondary turns out to not be any good this year, you don't have to take the blame yourself. You know who to blame it on. Who had him as the best secondary in the Big 12?
Phil Steele.
Phil Steele.
Oh, no.
It's the Phil Steele curse. That's what it is.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Well, They'll get it corrected, guys. I mean, like DY said, secondary hasn't really been an issue for this program in the Chris Klieman and Joe Klanderman era. They'll get it fixed up.
Well, it's a good thing that Arizona's offense is a very explosive, or they don't have a very good receiving core coming into this game, so they won't really be tested this week. No, I'm just kidding. Tetero McMillan is probably like a Bolitnikoff finalist caliber receiver, although he did have a weird 2 for 11 last week, so I don't know what to make of that. He had 304 yards and 4 touchdowns in week 1, and then he puts up a 2 for 11 last week when they scored 22 points against Northern Arizona, so I don't know exactly what to make of that.
I'm going to guess they went so vanilla that they screwed themselves up.
They fewest receiving yards in Tetero McMillan's 26 games at Arizona in his entirety of his career. They had some offensive line issues heading into that game, which we'll hit in on the offensive-defensive preview, but they were down 2 starters, including their starting center, Josh Baker, who had started 28 straight games going into that one, and they didn't have him, and they had to shift guys around at tackle. So we can get into that in the offensive-defensive preview, but they had some issues there. Regardless, shouldn't be in a 15-10 ball game against Northern Arizona, which is 145th in the SP plus FCS and FBS schools combined. I don't know what happened there, but Arizona really struggled to move the football. 0 of 10 on third downs. First time since 2003, Arizona didn't have a third down conversion in a game. 20-plus years.
Yeah, it does seem like there's been some consternation with Brent Brennan on that side, just judging from some of the tweets I've seen from some of their media personalities, people over there, which you can understand. I mean, they gave up 39 points in week 1 to New Mexico and then eked out the 12-point win over Northern Arizona, which leads me to headline number 2. I mean, both teams limp into this game maybe is a bit strong, but neither have injected their fan bases with a ton of confidence, I think, through the first 2 weeks. Obviously, we mentioned K-State gave up 342 yards passing to a redshirt freshman last week. The offense has been up and down, much better in the second half than the first. There have been slow starts. And then Arizona, it's like neither one of those games were very impressive against Northern Arizona or New Mexico, even though the offense did score 61 points in week 1. So as much as we're sitting here questioning the K-State pass defense and having major questions, I guess the point here is just to emphasize Arizona has a lot of questions too right now. I don't think they're feeling very confident, and they're the team that does have to go on the road here.
Yeah, K-State's been far from sharp. Sloppy on offense and a little bit disjointed at times, and unable to find a groove early in drives or early in games. And then defensively, the explosives have, as we alluded to earlier in the show, have really created them as well. For Arizona, they couldn't stop New Mexico, and then they couldn't score on Northern Arizona. So kind of a weird dynamic in two games for those Wildcats at this point. I think an important point to identify here as well, and actually Andy Staples and Ari Wasserman on 3 mentioned this, and they think this is kind of a big takeaway going into this game in terms of tests, is that Kansas State has played an opponent that would probably crush both of the opponents that Arizona has played.
I think that's fair. I mean, look, Tulane is, Tulane is 60th in the SP+. New Mexico is 157th. So DYU just heard me say Northern Arizona is 145th. New Mexico is even worse, and New Mexico is an FBS team. New Mexico allowed 362 yards rushing to Montana State in the game they blew and lost 35-31. Montana State's a good FCS program. But yeah, they haven't played anybody. K-State's been tested more just because of the game at Tulane. Far greater test. And you could argue that there's a benefit that you went up against. Mario Williams is not Tedero McMillan. Don't get me wrong, completely different players. But he's a former 5-star receiver, who transferred in from USC, was previously in Oklahoma, has got over 1,300 yards receiving in his career. You went up against some talented guys for Tulane, at least, to give you a taste. Now, you didn't perform very well, certainly, against it, but it'll be, I think that's good preparation and identify, like you mentioned earlier in the show, John, some, clean things up. It's better to happen before the Arizona game than later on this season. I think they'll identify it and get things fixed rather than it happening on Friday.
Yeah, I do think that the scheduling has worked out from that standpoint. It's you won, you survived. It's great to have that test and be able to see a lot of your warts under the microscope, maybe more so than what Arizona has so far this year. But as I said, that game is coming up. It's on a Friday, so you need to get express rush shipping. Good news is you get 15% off from our friends at Home Field Apparel. If you want to get the best college gear around, get it to your doorstep right now so that you have it for the game coming up on Friday. If not that, then just later on in the year when Cole's Oklahoma State Cowboys come to town. Make sure that you're geared up for that game at least with your best Home Field Apparel. They've got the best college gear around. You can get not only 50-plus K-State designs, but 100-plus other schools. And they have a lot of schools because Derek right now is holding up a Ball State shirt that I must admit is pretty sweet because it says chirp, chirp. So I like that.
I'm sending good juju to Jordan Riley this week. He's going to have a better game.
Okay. I like that. That's a good message. DY always, we're cerebral here on the show. So there's not only Easter eggs, but just like very cerebral Easter eggs behind the scenes. So you can get your Chirp Chirp shirt, 15% off. Use promo code 3MA24 at homefieldapparel.com. That is promo code 3MA24 at homefieldapparel.com. And we're back in just a moment.
We appreciate you supporting KC Sports Network by listening to our podcast. You have helped us become the highest-ranked Chiefs podcast network in 2022 and 2023. And don't forget about our daily Substack newsletter, the best written analysis you can find on the Chiefs straight to your inbox every day. kcsn.substack.com.
When you discover a new binge-worthy show or a song that you play on repeat and you just have to share it with your friends so they can experience just how awesome it is too? Well, that's how we felt when we discovered that Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan. It's such an awesome deal, there's no way we could keep it to ourselves. Friends don't let friends overpay for wireless. Say bye-bye to your overpriced wireless plan and switch to Mint Mobile. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text, delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your own phone number and bring along all your friends. Ditch overpriced wireless with Mint Mobile's deal and get 3 months of premium wireless service for just $15 a month. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/3ma. That's mintmobile.com/3ma. Cut your wireless bill to just $15 a month at mintmobile.com/3ma. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details.
As if that wasn't enough, giving you 15% off at homefieldapparel.com. We are also giving you a chance to win an extra $500. Who couldn't use that? Go to BlueWirePods.com/survey and complete the Blue Wire audience survey about you and your podcast listening habits for a chance to win a $500 gift card. This survey will help create a better advertising experience for audiences and, in turn, help this show. That's BlueWirePods.com/survey, where all you have to do is answer simple questions for a chance to win $500. Make sure to read the full terms and disclaimer, plus complete the survey for a chance to win. BlueWirePods.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes of this episode. So my final headline here, the third headline of the week, to me is the buildup of this game. And this is brought to you by our good friends at Alinco. For all your home improvement needs, hit up some great K-Staters at Alinco. It's the first top 20 matchup at Bill Snyder Family Stadium since Auburn in 2014, which is kind of crazy to think about that it's been that long since you've had a top 20 matchup at Bill Snyder Family Stadium. But it also does, and it brings back some of the Auburn vibes, right? That was the last time you had a top 20 matchup. This one is a non-conference game like the Auburn game was. It was pretty highly anticipated in the offseason because of the year that Arizona had last year, whereas 2014, Auburn was coming off of the national championship game appearance. So hopefully I'm not channeling, I don't know, like Keegan Johnson dropping a ball in the end zone kind of vibes that turns into an interception like we got from Tyler Lockett in that game, but it was a great atmosphere. It was a really fun time, and this represents a massive opportunity for K-State to make a statement, much like that game in 2014 against Auburn was when it was on ESPN. Now you're on Big Boy Fox.
Go ahead, Cole. You were right. You were around that time, not me.
Oh, that was an electric atmosphere. I mean, that was one of the louder atmospheres we probably had in the last decade, and the hype and energy that surrounded that. It was a weeknight game, like John alluded to, and the other thing about this, guys, Arizona comes into this game with the country's longest winning streak. They've won 9 straight games. And when you look at the games they lost last year, they lost them all by 7 points or less. Otherwise, they're 13-0. I mean, it's a 10-3 football team last year, now 2-0 on the season, 9-game winning streak. No team's won more consecutive games in college football. It's a big boy matchup. And 2 top 20 teams playing on a standalone game really on Friday night. I know KU plays UNLV, but most of the eyeballs are going to be on this game being on Big Fox. We talked about, you saw TV ratings for like that Florida State, Georgia Tech game in Ireland, albeit on a Saturday morning, of 5 million people watched that game. I wouldn't be surprised if the numbers are somewhat close to that with this type of matchup being on Fox and being a top 20 matchup. And then you factor in, guys, when you look at the slate of college football this weekend, the only other top 25 matchup between 2 ranked teams really is not that sexy. You're talking about Boston College, number 24, versus Missouri on the road. And Boston College is really only ranked because they beat a bad, fraudulent Florida State team, as it turned out. So it's a premier matchup that a lot of people are probably going to be tuned in for, and some offensive firepower, too, with Tedero McMillan, Noah Fafita coming to Manhattan, Avery Johnson, DJ Giddens, Dylan Edwards, et cetera, on the K-State offense. So huge opportunity to set the stage here and get on the eyes of some national media folks. I'm really looking forward to it, and I expect this to be, I don't know, I mean, maybe the best atmosphere since that Auburn game. Maybe KU game, one of those KU games when they came in, though the rain kind of, caused some.
I was going to say,
play too.
2 years ago, the weather screwed that up.
That screwed up the Mizzou game, too.
Yeah. All right. No thoughts on this, DY? Build up to the matchup? How about this? Like, chance for... I'm not saying any kind of, look, I'm not heaping Heisman on Avery Johnson. I think that was obviously, a little bit over the top from some people in the offseason. But he has had up and down start, and I think people are looking at it like, okay, he's still pretty raw. It could be a chance to just like reset and level set where people's expectations are for him this year and be like, oh, okay, like he does have it, because so many people will be paying attention to this game and actually watching it if he goes out there and plays well.
Yeah, for either quarterback, probably. This could be the launching point for either one. What I think of this amounts to is really setting up the team that wins. Obviously, you're not going to set the team up that loses, but I think the winner here has a real chance, just because, they're going to be favored in a lot of other games moving forward. This should, by rankings and what we know about these teams, be a tight game. If you get past this game, both these teams, the winner gets through the non-con undefeated and probably should, lose but 2 games in the conference schedule at most, I would think. So the winner has a really big opportunity. I think this game is bigger than people think, just because they're kind of dismissing it as a non-conference game. So it doesn't matter in that sense. But boy, I think the winner can probably get the 10 wins.
Something else for consideration, guys, is let's think about Tulane, which looked better than I think we expected. Let's say Tulane's like a 9-win team. And let's say Arizona, which coming into the season, the SP Plus projected to win almost 9 games this season. Let's say Arizona ends up being a 9-3 football team. You win this game, you beat Tulane, maybe goes 9-3 or something along those lines. You might give yourself the breathing room or margin for error for a loss, maybe not winning the Big 12 championship, to still get a large berth in the 12-team college football playoff. Like, this is an opportunity to boost your resume if Arizona ends up being solid. So, maybe you have that margin for error, whatever tiebreakers work out in the Big 12, where let's say you don't make the Big 12 championship, even though you went 8-1. You very well are going to get in at 11-1 overall because of the schedule you played in the non-con, perhaps, even though Arizona's a Big 12 team.
Bud Elliott from Cover 3 podcast, he is a big conference and big brand guy. So him saying this means something to me. He thinks Kansas State is maybe one of only 2 schools in the Big 12 that could potentially get an at-large just because of what Tulane could end up looking like in the future. And if they were to defeat Arizona and Arizona goes on to do good things as well, obviously it probably means going to Arlington and losing. That would be the at-large scenario, I think. But that is the scenario where the Big 12 can maybe squeeze Kansas State in as a 10 or 11, I think.
Yeah, I would think like Utah, Oklahoma State, and maybe Iowa State has played their way into that conversation with the win at Iowa, but that's going to depend on what Iowa does the rest of the year.
Right.
For sure, which is far from a certainty. But I can tell you, very much so, it is a certainty that you're in good hands with our friends at Alinco, local company based out of Kansas City, owned by K-Staters. They've been locally owned since 1986 in an industry where most have been bought out by national companies. So you want to deal with local people and people that love the Cats, you want to deal with Alinco. If you need new windows or a bathroom remodel, premium window replacements, Kohler Luckstone shower systems, they've got the hookup there. You can even get new siding on your home. And you don't have to be in KC or Manhattan. They're in western Missouri, northeast Kansas, and the entire KC metro. They'll go to Manhattan, Emporia, Topeka, Wichita, Rossville, wherever you are at. Go to alincohome.com. That's ALENCO home.com, ALENCO home.com to check out their services, including free estimates, and give Sam a call at 913-961-2165. Cole's interview this week was with Austin Romaine, who was the hero in a lot of ways at Tulane with the strip sack that Jack Fabris picked up and ran back for a touchdown. So make sure you are looking out for that in the feed and listening to that. And we know Cole's got all the information you could possibly need on Arizona. DY said that he wasn't fully locked in this week. So Cole, I trust that you are fully locked in with the Arizona prep and ready to give our Wildcat brethren here their due respect right now.
All right, well, here we go. Let's tee it up. Arizona closes a 36.5-point favorite against Northern Arizona. We already talked about it. They were up 15-10 with 10 minutes left in that game, and we talked about Northern Arizona not being a good football team, so very disappointing effort by Arizona to only win that game by 12 points. ESPN SP Plus, Bill Connolly, projects K-State to beat Arizona 35-25, gives the Wildcats a 72% chance to win. Guys, something that's really interesting as well, Kelly Ford before the season had a projected win probability of 70% for this game. Through 2 games, because of the way Arizona has performed, the win probability has increased to 82%. In his power ratings, he's got Arizona as the 53rd team in the country. K-State's win probability of 82% in this game is actually even higher now than Arizona State in Manhattan, which is 81%, which all credit to the Sun Devils, which have come out looking better than we expected.
I think it also has to do with the models are actually crediting Kansas State with winning that game over Tulane, kind of give a boost.
Yep, and I cannot wait to watch Oklahoma Tulane on Saturday. It's going to be a good litmus test to see what we saw. Tulane going to Norman on Saturday. Sooners struggled as well against Houston last weekend. All right, let's start with the Arizona defense. Everyone wants to start with the offense. Let's start with the defense. It's a defense that ranked 41st in the SP Plus last season, made a gigantic leap from the prior years. But I think the thing that's really interesting, guys, they gave up 39 points on 11 drives to New Mexico, an average of 3.5 points per drive, which is not a good number. And I already mentioned New Mexico's not a good football team, 160th or 157th in the SP Plus, FCS, and FBS schools combined. They're right there with UT Martin, guys. UT Martin is 164th in the SP+. Well, the thing that's fascinating about this is New Mexico has a dual-threat quarterback named Devin Dampier. He rushed 15 times for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns against Arizona, averaged 8.7 yards per rush, completed 24 of 42 passes for 260, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. And then Brent Brennan was asked about a comp between Dampier and Avery Johnson this week, and he said Avery's faster, and he's a more complete passer than Dampier. They struggled to stop him. New Mexico as a team rushed for 210 yards and averaged 5.5 yards per carry. Why is that important? K-State's rushed for 498 yards through 2 games, averaging almost 8 yards per rush. And keep in mind, again, I said this, in Mexico team that lost their season opener against Montana State, an FCS program. Jacob Manu led the team with 105 tackles last season, had 6.5 sacks, nearly 9 tackles per game, ranked number 25 nationally in 2023 in tackles for loss per game. He's back. He's got 20 tackles through 2 games, had 14 tackles against Northern Arizona. And they have a defense that has some uncertainty. They brought in 11 transfers. They got a stud corner, 6'4" corner, Tacario Davis, who was preseason All Big 12 first team. Mel Kiper, in his latest NFL mock draft rankings that came out earlier this month in September, has him ranked as the number 5 corner in all of college football, potential late round, first round pick. It's a defense that returned 66% of their production, which ranked 41st nationally. Here's an interesting thing, guys. Dwayne Aquina is the defensive coordinator for Arizona, okay? Well, Aquina is 67 years old. He was Dick Tomey's offensive coordinator at Arizona in the 1990s. He was an analyst on Jed Fish's staff last year at Arizona, and they promoted him to be the defensive coordinator. So now, this is Bill Connolly that had this fact, by the way. He's now served as the offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator at Arizona during his career. Look, I think K-State will be able to run the ball on this Arizona defense. I don't know if you have any thoughts to weigh in, but I think K-State will find plenty of success.
I think I said this to you guys, but K-State's a 7.5 point favorite. And what that tells me is the books kind of want people to take Arizona. So I think that's interesting. And if that's the case, and obviously by also what Cole has shared and knowing what Arizona can do offensively, I think there could be a lot of points in this game.
Oh, I'm expecting a lot of points. I think that's the MO. I know Arizona's defense was better last week. It was Northern Arizona. I would anticipate both teams are going to be able to move the ball.
Yeah. Well, and keep in mind that Dampier in the game against Montana State.
By the way, he's fun to watch. He's fun.
He is, but he only had 34 yards rushing in the season opener against Montana State, and he had 130 against Arizona, and they had a lot of explosives against Arizona, 31-yard pass, 22-yard pass, 32-yard run, 26-yard run. Arizona gave up a lot of explosive plays in that game, and it was a game for the first half. It was tied at 24 at one point. The other thing I would say, guys, they don't create a lot of pass rush, especially on their defensive line, not a lot of pressure rate up front for this Arizona defense. So I think K-State will be okay up front. Now, there are some questions. Carver Willis, Hadley Panzer banged up on the offensive line. Hadley Panzer, as you noted, DY didn't return in the second half at Tulane. Chris Kleiman said, kind of indicated both might be questionable. So you're going to have potentially some guys on the offensive line that are stepping in. Andrew Langang, who's arguably been one of K-State's best offensive linemen anyways, and John Pastore at tackle are going to have to be ready. All right. Well, let's start with the Arizona offense, which 2023 final SP Plus ranking was number 9 in the country. They're projected to be the number 12 offense going into this year. In the SP Plus, they finished in the F Plus of Brian Freemau's rankings, number 11 nationally last year. 3.08 points per drive last year. That ranked number 10 in the country. They returned 71% of their offensive production this year. That was 38th highest in the country. And you look at that team offensively last year, they were number 6 nationally in offensive success rate overall. Number 5 in passing success rate, or number 9 in passing success rate, number 5 in rushing success rate. Over Arizona's final 7 games last year, they averaged 43 points per game on offense and scored 257 points on 74 drives. It's almost 3.5 points per drive. You extrapolate that over the whole season, 3.5 points per drive would rank number 4 in the country. Tetaroa McMillan, we already talked about it. I mentioned Mel Kiper earlier and having him ranked, the Tacario Davis ranked so high. Tetaroa McMillan is behind only Travis Hunter in his draft board for wide receivers, which you could argue Travis Hunter corner wide receiver combo. He's got him 2 spots ahead of Luther Burden of Missouri in his mock draft rankings. Got him as the number 10 overall player in the draft, 6'5" receiver, highest ranked recruit in the history of this Arizona football program. Had 90 receptions for over 1,400 yards last season, 15.6 yards per catch and 10 touchdowns. He had 11 receptions for 266 yards against Arizona State in the regular season finale last season. John, you already mentioned the 304 yards against New Mexico. So this guy can explode at any moment and have monster games. He had 38 receptions for 649 yards and 16 contested catches to just 2 drops for Bill Connolly during that stretch. And that was when Arizona was just dynamic on the offensive end. 649 yards in the last 4 games, guys. To put that in perspective, Phillip Brooks led K-State last year with 589 yards from the receiver position. All right. This guy had 649 in the last 4 games of last season. I already mentioned he had a school record low, or a record low for his career with 11 yards against Northern Arizona. So why did that happen? I don't know. Chris Kleiman said that at his press conference this week that Noah Fafita at quarterback and McMillan might have the most chemistry of any wide receiver quarterback combo that he's ever seen or went up against.
They've played together since like 6th or 7th grade, right?
Right. That's exactly it. They've been high school teammates in California together. Jacob Manu, their linebacker, was also on that high school team. So yeah, they're former teammates. A lot of chemistry there. Fafita, we all know the story. Almost 3,000 yards passing last year when he stepped in 3 to 4 games into the season. 25 touchdowns, 72% completion rate to just 6 interceptions. Number 5 nationally in completion rate. Number 10 in passing efficiency. Just 18 of 26 for 173 against Northern Arizona, so he struggled. I think one thing of note, guys, just a couple more minutes on this Arizona offense, I know we got to move on. McMillan and Jacob Cowing last year at wide receiver tied for number 9 nationally. Cowing did with 6.9 receptions per game. He had 848 yards receiving and 13 touchdowns. He was that secondary piece for Teteroa, McMillan, and Noah Fafita to throw to. They don't have that right now. Their second leading wide receiver, playing wide receiver specifically, Jeremiah Patterson with 4 catches for 40 yards. Freshman Devin Hyatt is 3rd in receiving yards at 30. So they have not shown that they have that second guy yet at wide receiver. They probably have some talent there, but we'll have to see. Arizona offensive line, I mentioned it earlier. They didn't have their starting center, Josh Baker, who started 28 straight games. They didn't have him against Northern Arizona. He was dressed but not able to play due to injury. He had also suffered an injury during training camp this year for Arizona. So we'll see. He's probably questionable against K-State. And then they lost one of their offensive tackles and had to slide a true freshman in at right tackle. And they had to shift Jonah Sevenaniah over to left tackle. Now, Jonah Sevenaniah is projected to be a late 1st round to early 2nd round pick up front. They lost Jordan Morgan, who was a top 2-round pick last year. Sevenaniah is a hell of a player, but they've had to move him to left tackle. And now they're playing a true freshman at right tackle in this game due to injury, and they were without their center, so they were down 2 offensive linemen against Northern Arizona. We'll see what that offensive line looks like, but they struggled against Northern Arizona. I mentioned 0 of 10 on 3rd down. It's the first time they haven't converted a 3rd down since 2010. And then Quali Conley, good running back, transferred in from San Jose State. But I will point out, and he's been terrific for him, they brought in a second transfer, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt from New Mexico. He rushed for almost 1,200 yards and 17 touchdowns last year. He played in the opener. He did not play against Northern Arizona. There are compliance concerns regarding his eligibility, and as of Tuesday, Brent Brennan didn't sound like he had any idea if there was any clarity yet on his eligibility. So they may not have Krosky-Merritt for this game, and it might just be Quali Conley, a running back, who rushed for 6.4 yards per carry last year and has been terrific for him this year, averaging almost 8 yards per carry.
But both teams banged up on the offensive line, actually.
Yeah. That was a good breakdown. I mean, that's a lot more context than I knew about where Arizona is at. So appreciate that as always. Quick hitters time, boys. Here's something that's generated a lot of discussion among the fan base this week, Dylan Edwards and his usage. I thought Chris Kleiman had a pretty good answer, to be honest, when asked about it, because he said, he acknowledged, we've got to find more ways to get him the ball. He's averaging 9 yards a touch right now and only has 12 through 2 games. I would hope that includes getting him on kickoff returns, because that's been a burr in my saddle. I don't understand. Burn my saddle, burn my side, whatever it is.
I don't know, but that was interesting.
It's a saying. Nick, Google that for me. Is it burn the saddle or... Yeah, it's like the burr on the boot. It's, but I don't know if that's in the side or the saddle. I don't know what you're doing. with your burrs.
I don't know what you're doing either. Yeah, what you're doing with your saddle.
Well, listen, just because I'm from the country and I understand how people in the country, like the great farmers in the state of Kansas, live, Cole, and I'm not just a yuppie out there in Olathe like you. Okay, I understand.
You didn't make your Deep South joke. I thought I was just waiting for that. I grew up on 7 acres.
Well, it didn't really fit my narrative here, so I had to just include you in Olathe, you big city slicker. Burn the saddle. Thank you, Nick. Burn the saddle. I don't like that they don't put Dylan Edwards on kickoff return. Jace Brown, love you as a receiver. Things have not gone very well as a kick returner. I know Kleiman believes in his guys. Maybe there's some reason that they'd rather have Dylan Edwards returning punts, but it's so hard to get punt returns in today's day and age anyway. Chris Kleiman says they're going to get him more touches, and he also said, look, we just haven't run very many plays with the ones on offense through 2 games. That's a big part of it. They were under 60 plays on Saturday at Tulane. The ones on offense, he pointed out, ran like 40 plays in the game against UT Martin, so they haven't had that many opportunities. So I ask you this. If I put the over-under at 7.5 touches for Dylan Edwards on offense on Friday, are you going over or under?
I'll go over. I think there's going to be more snaps, more points, just a lot more everything. So I think that's going in itself push it over.
It'll be over that, and if it's not, my head will explode after the game. They got to get the guy more touches. Nine carries for 97 yards, 13.5 yards per carry against Tulane, just 4 touches, and then the 1 reception for -2. They got to get him on the field more, and it's not just that, John. It's not even just getting him the ball. Just get him on the field. It's a distraction.
That's my thing, the snaps, because you can infuse a lot more creativity to the offense by him just being on the field and not touching it, because it seems like a really big tell right now because he barely comes on the field, but when he does, he's absolutely getting the ball every time.
Which makes it all the more impressive he does what he does, because everybody's probably thinking, Edwards getting the ball.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would go over as well, but somewhat cautiously optimistically there. I do think it's going to go over. What number would I have had to put that at for you to take the under? It's like 9.5?
10.5, because I think he's going to be about 10. I think 10.
I'd say probably 9.5, 10. John, I'd probably maybe take the under.
All right. Which number is higher? DJ Giddens rushing yards or Teteroa McMillan receiving yards? Now, I will tell you, at Unnamed Sportsbook, their over-unders are 92.5 for McMillan and 97.5 for DJ Giddens.
Yeah, that's tough. I'll say McMillan, just because I think Kansas State's going to have a bit more balance in this game.
Can we take the over on both?
Which one has more, he said.
Yeah, which one has more? Okay, yeah. And I'll take DJ Giddens. And the over-under 97.5 yards for DJ Giddens rushing is interesting because he's rushed for over 100 yards in 6 straight games. One of the longest streaks in all of college football. He only needs 18 more yards to get to 2,000 in his career, which is 3rd fastest in K-State football history behind only Darren Sproles and Alex Barnes. Actually, I'll say DJ Giddens because I think K-State is going to be able to run the ball on Arizona. I think they're going to run it really effectively, and I trust that Clanderman and Kleiman will get the secondary corrected and aligned.
Think about that. DJ Giddens could get to 2,000 yards faster than Deuce Vaughn did.
It's crazy. He should get there. Deuce was at 357 carries when he reached 2,000. I pulled the numbers on that. DJ is at 1,982 at his 344th carry. So as long as he can get 18 yards in the next 13 carries, he'll beat Deuce Vaughn to 2,000.
If he didn't, we're in trouble. So
yeah.
I mean, I'm going to go with Teteroa McMillan, but also say that DJ Giddens' number will be very high and I think K-State can still have a lot of success. I mean, you pointed out, Cole, like Teteroa McMillan's like the guy. He's going to eat up so much of that in their passing game. So I think he can have 150 yards and you can be absolutely fine.
And when things got tight and there was pressure in game 1, they just force-fed him the ball. He was the only one.
Yeah. All right. Right now, I think it's been a fairly disappointing year at quarterback, honestly, in the league so far. When the beginning of the year, you were looking at it like, hey, man, Shedeur Sanders, Cam Rising, Noah Fafita, Avery Johnson, Jalen Daniels. Who right now gets your first team? Well, I won't say right now. Who would you project to get first team All Big 12 quarterback at the end of the year right now? With Cam Rising injured, Jalen Daniels throwing 3 interceptions in a game. Noah Fafita, I think, has been fine, but Shedeur Sanders is not getting protected. It looks like he's going to be running for his life all year again. Who you projecting there? You going Rocco Becht, right in the hot hand?
Ooh. Man, that is tough because Iowa State's schedule is weak as hell coming up too.
Yeah.
Like that, but Iowa State's. I mean, Rocco Becht's fine, but Iowa State's also scored 21 and 20 in their first 2 games. So I know against Iowa,
because they don't really operate at a pace conducive to really lighting it up either. So that's another kind of issue you run into. I'll say Cam Rising because I don't think it's a long-term injury, right?
Yeah, we heard a timeline.
Isn't he playing this week?
It's Whittingham's been a little coy, it sounds like, and hasn't said whether or not he would play this week. I would expect that he's going to be out there in 2 weeks when they play Oklahoma State.
So right now I'm thinking Rising or Fafita, to be honest.
I was literally about to say, if I get assurances that Rising is legitimately not going to be out for very long, I'm going with him. If not, I would take Fafita.
Yeah, I'll go with Fafita.
Okay. All right. Not buying the game. Cam Rising has looked. I mean, it's funny to watch him. Like he's so good and effective, but he's not flashy at all. Like, but he's been so good, so good when he's out there. They're just, the offense works with him. He's definition of just a
machine-like
player.
Machine-like, not flashy.
Yeah. Who wins more games this year? Arizona State, Texas Tech, or West Virginia? Doing a little pulse check here on teams in the Big 12 and seeing how much you believe in what Kenny Dillingham is doing at Arizona State.
I'm impressed by what they have done through 2 weeks, but they have a very tough schedule.
So does West Virginia.
Yes, and so does West Virginia. Texas Tech has a very easy schedule, but they look the worst of the 3. I'll be dumb and still take Texas Tech just because of the schedule, but I don't know.
You're going to ride that Red Raider bandwagon into the grave, DY.
Oh, yeah. I dumped them into the Big 12 power rankings this week. I even got the helmet ready. Like, these guys are really letting me down right now.
I'd have them dead last. I watched their whole game against Washington State. That defense is...
They didn't even, put up a fight, ever.
No, that looked like a program with some cultural issues. They just quit. They were not... I mean, Washington State ran for 300-plus yards, I believe, on them. They couldn't stop anything. I'll put it in order of, I think, West Virginia most wins, Arizona State second most, Texas Tech third.
Wait, give me that again. Texas Tech last.
Yeah, first. I had West Virginia most wins out of those 3, and then Arizona State.
West Virginia is probably the right answer because they're better than Arizona State and have just as tough of a schedule. Texas Tech's probably not the right answer, but that's who I
think West Virginia is better than Arizona State. They had Mississippi State down 30-3 before they gave up 20 points at the end. But
the problem is that Arizona State's depth or lack thereof is going to catch up to them too very quickly.
Yeah. I would, if you pressed me, I would take West Virginia, but I don't feel great about it because I'm like, man, maybe I should believe Kenny Dillingham's got a bowl team on his hands. Which tweet this week was more on brand? Travis Goff quoting Teddy Roosevelt's "Man in the Arena," or Kelly Leipold's quote, "Crazy if we could actually be at a place where the fans care to pack it," when talking about Kansas fans in response to Kirk Herbstreit
allegedly
about Nebraska having filled stands.
Which one's more on point?
Which one's more on brand? Lance Leipold, who continues to be a maniac on the sideline, not be able to control emotions on the sideline, having someone going off on the lack of fan support at Kansas, or Travis Goff pontificating after a loss before September 10th by quoting Teddy Roosevelt and the Man in the Arena. Just
more on brand is definitely Goff.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I was about to say, as I'm talking about this, I'm like, it's definitely Travis Goff. That was very on brand for Travis Goff.
Yeah. What I would say is the Leipold thing and the crowd probably got a point, but you can't do it after a loss, especially when on the road. Very bizarre timing.
Fans, listen, okay, and yes, I see Nick allegedly. Yes, Kelly, after people like Mike Vernon were basically saying, yeah, this is real. And I will just tell you, conversations I was having with people, most people believe that was a real tweet. Kelly Leipold did say it was not her. I think it was real. I will say that. Anyway, I'm sorry, I keep reading what Nick is saying here.
Yeah, you can't. One, they were on the road this past week. Two, they lost. And
Yes,
three,
okay.
in the process of building
Thank you. I got too distracted there. Kansas fans, I'm going to be nice to you here. I feel like the fan support has actually been pretty solid, right? Like,
it's come a long way.
It's like, where is that coming from? Like, they're building you a new stadium. Leipold holds their feet to the fire every time anybody sniffs around about a job, and certainly did this last time. Got it specifically in the contract to build the stadium. Fans seem to be there. Last year at Memorial Stadium. I was like, where is this coming from? That's why the on-brand thing, DY, because Leipold seems to be so demanding at all times and never really happy or satisfied by all this.
Shout out Illinois for the win.
John, Kelly expects Arrowhead Stadium to be at max capacity in a couple weeks, all right? So I think 75,000 Crimson and Blue packed into Arrowhead are Kelly's expectations. Okay? There's nothing wrong with expecting great things out of your fan base. Good for Kelly.
I mean, is that what it is? Did she get some report about how many tickets have been sold for whatever the first game at Arrowhead is? I don't know, man. Because they're going to West Virginia, right? After the Children's Mercy Park game against UNLV. So it's a while down the road. That was weird. But that's the question. I guess we're all going, though, with Travis Goff.
No, because if you're going to say on brand as the question, then yeah, it's definitely.
Okay, you're forced to listen to either one of these. You have to listen to one of these for 24 straight hours. Tim Brando, who will be on the call on Friday. Tim Brando trying to pronounce Felix Anudike-Uzama, or Bob Wischusen and Louis Riddick crying about the offensive pass interference call. 24-hour loop. Which one are you choosing?
Probably Brando trying to pronounce Felix's name, because there'll still be some entertainment value in that. Yeah, so I would go with that. I'll say this too, and this is probably messed up saying this right before they're going to call the game, but Brando's not even the worst guy on his team anymore. I mean, Devin Gardner's pretty freaking rough too.
Yeah. Great that we subbed out. What's his face for Devin Gardner?
That's what I was trying to think of his name too. Is it Charles Tillman?
Yeah, it's Spencer Tillman.
Spencer Tillman.
Not Peanut Tillman for the Bears, right? Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Tillman still announces games, so they just decided to break those two up. I wonder if they had a little culture issue themselves.
Where they hiding Spencer at on CBS Sports Network or something? I haven't seen him yet this year.
I forgot.
Calling that 10 o'clock Mountain West game. Anyways, I'll take Tim Brando because BY said it. The entertainment value of watching him butcher it 50 different ways would be far more entertaining to me than watching Louis Riddick complain and Bob Wischusen about an obvious OPI call.
So. I haven't made it to the part. You told me that Curry did a good job of taking that down. I haven't made it to that in the podcast yet.
Oh, yeah. Great stuff from Curry. Yeah, great stuff from Curry because he provides such a unique perspective. As Curry said, I set a lot of picks for Tyler Lockett back in my day. I know how to set a right pick. And, the thing that you do, as Curry said, you turn around, you plant your feet, you put your hands up, you rub the defender, and instead of just running with your back right into the, defender.
You got to make it look like a route.
Right, exactly. Curry, great perspective on that call. He took a shot at Stuart Mandel, John. You'll really enjoy that. And just some really good things about, different things that happened, especially the back half of that show. Great perspective and analysis from Curry. I'm most impressed you listened to every one of these shows, John. That's the biggest upset of the year.
He's locked in.
That's because I'm locked in. That's it. Damn right, DY. That's exactly right. Speaking of locks, lead pipe block of the week, Derek is the one that is locked in because he's 2-0, and Cole and I are 0-2. So
I mean, we haven't mentioned BYU yet. Not a bad start. They need
their defense is good.
They need to figure out how to score, but
their defense is good. They locked down Illinois first, or not Illinois, SMU. The first time that SMU has not scored a touchdown in 8 years. Congratulations to the BYU defense. But I put the money on Kansas. Obviously, that did not work well. Cole went with Iowa.
He got backdoored wrong.
At the back door. You were looking great at halftime there, but it didn't work out. We're both 0-2. So who wants to start with their lead pipe block of the week?
I'll go last because I'm the winner. I'm the home team.
I'll take Boston College plus 17 at Missouri.
Wow.
Why are you making that face? As I get choked up over it.
I think you squeaked, too. I think you just went back to being 10 with gold.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't like Boston College here. I don't.
I think they're going to be able to run the ball, control the clock enough that they're going to keep it relatively low scoring.
If they make it low enough possessions, you'll get it right.
All right, well, I'm going with there was not something that like I really loved this week.
Our board, yeah.
Yeah, but I do think that South Carolina's due for a fall back down to earth after they just demolished Kentucky last week. They didn't look that great in week one. I don't think they're that great.
I should have went before John. This was my lock.
Okay, yeah, I got LSU -7 at South Carolina. I think
that was what I was going to take.
LSU's looked sluggish and not great. You know, I mean, they blew the game against USC. They were not sharp last week. And this just feels like a spot where, you know, people are going to be like, oh, well, look, South Carolina just clubbed Kentucky. I mean, I respect to Mark Stoops, but I don't know.
Yeah,
it really means that much. This feels like a come back down to earth sort of moment.
I agree. I think Kentucky just threw out a dud and South Carolina basically benefited from it. I also think like people like wrote off LSU for losing to USC in a tight game. Like USC might be really good. Like if you give Lincoln Riley a defense, that's a tough team to beat. So I don't think losing to USC is an indictment on LSU at all. I think they can be still really good. They could go even 10-2 or 11-1. So I was going to go LSU -7 as well.
You can just take it. That's your pick.
I'll go something different, just because we got to give people more than 2 picks. So I will go UCF 2.5 over TCU. I think the Frogs are frauds. UCF, they got enough. They got enough dudes. I mean, really, if you're going to take the game, you should just go UCF money line. But 2.5, I'll take it.
I like that. I like Tulane also at Oklahoma, but I'm a little hesitant on it. 13.5, 14. If Oklahoma had a wake-up call last week and Tulane let down effect after losing a tough one.
Yeah, but I'll take the UCF. I would also take Cincinnati. They were 2.5 as well against a MAC team. So
how they blow the game? So I thought they were up by like 3 scores.
They were.
Literally at the end of the third quarter, they gave up a score with like 10 seconds left in the third quarter, but they were up by 3 touchdowns before that. Yeah, that was not good. Okay, prediction time. You know what? I'll go ahead and go first.
Oh, yeah.
Save you the suspense. We're going with the Cats. And that would be the K-State Wildcats, by the way. I'll take 34-31. I think you're going to get a lot of points. That would cash the over just barely. I'll go 34-31 K-State.
I got the Cats, too. I think the offense is going to click. I think they'll stop Arizona enough, but Arizona will probably be explosive just because that is still an issue for K-State, and I don't think that you can fix it in 5 days. I will say Kansas State 30. I'll go 41-31.
Got to stay on the field more. This offense does. Chris Kleiman's talked about it. They averaged 75.4 plays per game against FBS opponents last year. They ranked 13th highest in all of college football and 3rd highest in the Big 12 behind TCU and Oklahoma. They're averaging 55 plays per game right now through 2 games. They had 7 3-and-outs in the first 2 games with the first-team offense. Offense got to stay on the field more, keep the defense on the field, off the field, because K-State's 108th in time of possession right now at 34-26 in terms of minutes per game controlled by the opponent. So stay on the field more. I think they will. I think K-State's going to run the ball really effectively. I'm going to take K-State's offense to really get things going, get off to a little faster start. Avery Johnson in the second half of his last 2 games, 80% completion percentage, 190 yards combined, 13 yards per pass attempt almost. I think he gets it going earlier. I'm taking some explosives. K-State wins 38-27, and I'm rocking the Michael Bishop 1998 jersey here that I still fit in, DY. I still fit in this bad boy because back then they made the jerseys really long for everybody. So, John, I thought you'd appreciate that. This is my version of the turnover chain here with the Bishop. I have Arizona gear because I went to Tucson and covered the NCAA tournament in 2012, and I bought a bunch of Arizona stuff.
So do I. I've got the shorts. I really like the basketball shorts.
Yeah, I've got
the cactus shirt. I got the cactus shirt.
I've got the basketball shorts. I've got a couple Arizona hats I bought when I was there for Jacob Poland's final game, which kills me. Yeah. I forgot to put it in here to throw out, like I was going to throw it off. So, like DY does.
I wore the Tulane hoodie down to New Orleans, so I guess that worked.
Wow. Blended in with the people.
Yeah.
Man. Okay. All right. DY, did you make a prediction?
41-31. A lot of points.
41-31. Okay.
So DY's got him 10. I got him 11. John's got him winning by 3.
Well, I'm sure I'll hear it from Brody. I'm sure. Does he have a prediction yet?
No prediction yet from Brody, but I'm sure it'll be something rather outlandish. So, I beat him on my dynasty by 38. I mean, how with Arizona? So, Yeah.
All right. Well, appreciate Nick Springer behind the scenes. Thanks to all of our great sponsors, everybody who supports the show. Thank you to all of you guys. If you want extra content, you want to be in the Discord, you can go to patreon.com/3maw to sign up there. It is lively as always. I forgot. I told everybody whoever made the best joke of the week in the Discord would get a mention here, but I guess this is some motivation for you guys. Nothing stood out to me. Nothing stood out enough to me this week, so get after it, Discord. But we appreciate you all. Enjoy the game on Friday, and we will talk to you soon. Thanks for listening to another edition of 3 Maw.